There is a mistake that we all make on our healing journey. And 2 months into mine, I made it. And that is that I was feeling so good and I had so much energy that I thought that I could add more to my plate. And then I did. And within just a few short weeks, my healing journey completely regressed. All that progress that I had made basically disappeared, and I felt like I was back at step one, and I'm frustrated and sad. It's so common, and even someone like me, a health coach who knows better, makes this mistake too. We start feeling better. We feel like we can take on the world. We want to do all the things that we've put off for so long, and then we add too much to our plate, and boom, we crash. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you what I did, the mindset shift I had to make, and what I'm doing to get back on track. And this is all the same thing that I tell all of my clients, and I'm going to share with you today. Welcome to the Therapeutic Food Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Marian Mitchell. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, therapeutic diet expert, and founder of The Road to Living Whole. There are many different diets out there. It's hard to know which one is right for you with your chronic illness and autoimmune disease. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you the foundational pieces every single therapeutic diet out there shares, and also how to use the best one for your particular diagnosis. If you've been looking for a meal planning partner, help navigating the complicated healthcare system, and want to feel better quickly, I'm your girl. Grab your kombucha and notebook. Let's dive in. So I took on too much. I felt amazing. I felt like myself. And I, for some reason, love to kill myself being busy. There's just so much to do when you own a business, and there's so much growth that can be done, and there's so many more people to serve. And I really felt like I had the mental and physical space to do these things. Turns out that I don't. I can't do more than what I was already doing. And because I took on too much, I disappointed people. I had to go back on my word and back out of obligations that I said I would do. It sucked. It still sucks. I still think about it. It's still on my mind, and I feel so much guilt around it. But I also have to put myself in a place where it's okay to take care of me. Right? I don't like to commit to things unless I know I'm going to follow through. And I honestly thought when I took some stuff on that I was in a place that I could. But 2.5 weeks in, my anxiety came back full blown. I stopped being able to sleep through the night. I gained back all the weight that I lost. It was only 3 pounds, but still. It's frustrating. So mentally, how do we deal with the emotional turmoil in the aftermath of when we push it? Like, and I see it with my clients all the time, right? Like, you're not unique. This is something that we all do. And you just kind of resign to the fact that you can't. But then it almost makes it hard to try again next time. And we almost kind of get into this pity party and almost this mindset belief that we're just never going to be able to do the things that we want to do. And sometimes it's easy to get stuck there. So I want to share with you the talk I had to myself and the talk that I give to my clients that are in this place, because you're not doomed to be in this place where you can never add more to your plate. You're not, I promise. So there are 5 things that I want you to keep in mind when you do this and you realize you can't do all the things that you want to do and you have to move more slowly, and being able to reframe your thoughts around that to something productive instead of destructive. So grab your paper and notebook. Let's write these down. Number 1, give yourself grace wanting to do all of the things you've wanted to do for so long and not being able to do them does not make you a failure. So don't beat yourself up. Just give yourself grace. You did nothing wrong. You haven't completely, ruined your healing journey. Like, healing is not linear. It's not this straight up thing. It is up and down and sideways and loop-de-loops and all of these things. So you have not derailed anything. Okay, so give yourself grace. Number 2, learn to accept that slow and steady wins the race. This one is hard for me, like so hard. I've got things to do and goals I want to reach. I also am in a place in life where I don't have a lot of help. I do have help. I also don't ask for it as much as I should, honestly. So a little bit of this lack of help is my own fault. I don't want to be seen as a burden or as a user, right? I'd rather have help when I really need it than burn people out and then be stuck when I really do. I'm also massively independent, and I've had to be as a single mom. And because I've picked bad partners who really weren't willing to step in and share the burden with me. So I would basically be taking on keeping what I was already doing and then adding their stuff. So I've had to be. But even now, having the help that I have, people can get burnt out. They have things to do too. So making the mental shift to allow things to move more slowly than I would like and focus on the biggest priorities and allowing everything else to happen in its own time truly helps way more than beating ourselves up. Number 3, and I went on a kind of a little tangent on this in number 2, but I do think it's important and I want to expand on it because we should ask for help. But there has to be boundaries to this, okay? Because we do get tired. We are exhausted. We are sometimes in excruciating pain. And, some days are just really hard. So how do we ask for help but have boundaries that we establish with these people who do help us, not only for ourselves but for them, so that at the end of the day, nobody feels taken advantage of or resentful, right? So there are 3 things that I think help when we ask for help and what the boundaries are. Number 1 is explain what's going on so people know why you're asking for help and see where you're coming from. I think when people understand when they do have the space to help, they're much more willing to use that space to help. If you're very secretive about what's going on, and you just kind of ask for it, if it's kind of entitled, right? Like, you don't need to overshare, but you can let them know what you're struggling with and what the symptoms are and what days are the hardest. And you can kind of give them that insight, right? Then the second thing is ask what their boundaries are and what they are willing and able to give that won't overextend them. I think this is really important because them hearing that you don't want them to overextend themselves and what their boundaries are is extremely respectful, right? Like, even the most giving of people can feel taken advantage of, especially when we're in a place where we don't have much to give back, right? So letting them know, like, hey, what are your boundaries? And I don't want you to overextend yourself. And this will probably be an ongoing conversation because sometimes people have more space and then there's times when they don't, and letting them know that 1, that's okay, and 2, you'll respect it, and 3, please communicate it, just helps keep the peace all around so that you keep these relationships in your life healthy. Number 3, let them know that they can stop helping at any time without feeling bad, but to please give you notice, and that's your boundary, right? So that you can prepare other arrangements. You don't want somebody that has been helping you do something, like maybe pick up the kids from school, or if you're having a really bad day, they'll watch them for you, or maybe order groceries. The list is endless. There's a lot of things that people can help with, right? But it's like you don't want, again, if they're starting to feel resentful or angry or something, you want them to know what your boundaries are. Like, hey, like if you can't do that, please give me, as much notice as possible, at least a couple of days, so that I can, make other arrangements or make sure that I am taking care of myself before then so that I can do this extra task, right? So you can see boundaries on both sides. And again, communication is just, I think, really, really important in life in general. And people typically don't explain enough. They just assume that they know what we know because we know it. And it's something that we just know. So why wouldn't anybody else? But communication in any relationship just makes things better, especially if you're asking for things because you cannot physically do stuff, right? And then number 4, go back to the foundations. You did not fail. You did not fall off the wagon. You did not ruin anything. This is a normal part of the healing process. It's going to happen. It happens. It's going to happen. It's just how it is, right? So go back to the foundations of supporting the healing process. And this is where having the right food baseline is so important. Whole, minimally processed foods, high quality protein, plenty of healthy fats, minimizing processed foods, added sugar, artificial sweeteners. And if you don't really know what that looks like for you or how to make that work, go into the show notes and download my Healthy Food Foundations guide in the show notes. And that's going to give you like the starting point. Right. And then if you're like, hey, Marian, I don't have the space to do this on my own. Can I meet with you, tell you what's going on and get like a plan from you? We can totally do that too. Schedule a discovery call and the link to do that, it's completely free, is in the show notes as well. All right. So we got healthy eating, right? One of the foundations, but there are 3 other things that are really key as well. Stress management, like being able to manage stress in a healthy way. Like chronic illness and autoimmune disease and healing is stressful, right? Like, and then there's all the other things that go on in our lives. And so stress is going to happen. We can't avoid it. We can do things to make it easier, like communicate and things like that, right? But how do we manage it in a healthy way? And there's simple things like box breathing, meditation, journaling, things like that. Really, really simple. Don't take a lot of time. Extremely effective in lowering cortisol and mitigating your stress response as the day goes on, right? So learning stress management strategies, super important. Rest. Now, it's hard because it's almost like all we do is rest, right? We're saying no to plans. We're saying no to things. We leave the parties at 9 o'clock so we can be at home and in our bedtime at the normal time, right? We're constantly saying no to things, and rest is a priority, but rest is a priority, right? So making sure that we build in that time, and it's not always sleeping, but making sure we're building in downtime and time to unplug and unwind and, do things that are restful for us is really important. And then physical activity. So one of the things with like autoimmune disease and chronic illness, especially when there's like a lot of pain or fatigue associated with like activity, is we tend to avoid it because we don't want to be more tired. But then we get more tired because we're not doing the physical activity. Physical activity is absolutely essential. Now, do you have to kill yourself at the gym, climb a mountain, like do like hardcore intense workouts? Absolutely not, especially if you're in recovery. But Tai Chi, yoga, swimming, walking, strength training with light dumbbells or body weight for 15 or 20 minutes 3 times a week, things like that, absolutely essential. And if it makes you more tired and you crash after, it is what it is. But I promise you're going to be so much better off with that physical activity than without it, especially in the long run when it comes to your healing journey. Okay. So the foundations again, eating well, stress management techniques, rest, and physical activity. And then number 5 is believe it will get better. If you believe you're going to be stuck in this place forever and it's never going to get better, well, it's not. You're going to self-sabotage yourself constantly, and you're not even going to realize you're doing it. But it's how important our beliefs are, because whatever we believe is what our brain is trained for us to do. And if we go outside of that belief, there's like this thing that happens inside of us where we almost like break, and our bodies don't want that, right? So getting better starts in your mind. So you have to visualize your life the way you want it to be, and remember that vision every single day. So how do we do that in a way that can be routine, right? First of all, write it down. Write it down in excruciating detail what you want your life to look like. Not what it is now, but what you envision it being as you reach the healthy part. Because health is lifelong. It's not a destination, right? So you're always going to be managing this and taking care of yourself. And what that looks like might change, but you're never going to be able to eat crap and eat a bunch of sugar and drink a bunch of alcohol and not sleep and all this stuff. Like, those days are gone with our youth, right? Like, we abused ourselves then. We can't do that now. But what I'm talking about is like what you want your life to look like moving forward, and being pain-free and having energy, and, being able to say yes to plans, and having like this healthy balance in life where, you're not constantly sleeping or in pain or things like that. So visualizing that and writing that down, and then read it every single morning, and then add to it. Check off things that are happening, because sometimes we forget, and just every single day, keep that at the front of your mind. Read it. That's the intention for the day, and cling to it. And I promise you, you will attain it. You will. I've been there. I've done that. You can and will too. Will it take time? Of course. Every good thing does. Like, people who win the lottery are broke within 5 years, but people who scrimp and save and work their butts off, and eventually learn how to work smarter and not harder, and then become millionaires through that, they tend to stay that way for life, right? Like, it's not the money or whatever, it's who you are, who you become along the way, is what they say. It's the same thing with healing, or reversing, or making asymptomatic your symptoms, right? Like, it just gets so much better on the other side, and you appreciate it so much more, and you incorporate the habits that are going to give you lifelong health. So while I am disappointed that I took 2 steps forward and like 1.5 steps back, I made the hard choices. I brought myself back to a place that I know I can not only sustain, but I can thrive in this place right now. And I'm starting to feel better. I'm finally starting to sleep through the night most nights. My anxiety is getting better. It's not as good as it was, but I figure in a couple more weeks, I'll be back to where I was. And I am sure the weight loss will start again. I mean, I'm eating right. I'm exercising. I'm sleeping. Like, as I get better at sleeping, and as my stress comes down because my anxiety is not so high, it all comes together, right? And just the takeaway message is like, when you come to this place where you've done too much and then you have to go back and rest, you have not failed. You haven't derailed anything. It's part of the process. And sometimes we need to push ourselves to even see what we can do and kind of learn like what we can take on, right? That's okay. And everybody does it. You're not like the only one, and you're not going to just don't make it bigger than what it is. You know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, you have me that can help you. And just keep doing that. And I promise you, this chapter will end, and you're going to be in a new and better chapter. I promise. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you found this episode helpful, would you do me a favor and help others find it by leaving a review, sharing a screenshot on social media, or sharing the link with a friend? By you sharing what you've learned, others are able to find this podcast and join our community. Be sure to check out my website, www.roadtolivinghole.com, for over 160 delicious recipes, a variety of meal plans, and a blog packed full of even more healthy living tips. If you'd like to learn more about how to work with me as your coach, you can schedule a free consult through www.roadtolivingwhole.com/health-coaching/. Until next time, friend. Bye.